Welcome to Dub Radio.
Your access has been granted.
Taking you to the higher state.
You are now entering the poetry universe.
Yeah.
This is Dub A Radio, the poetry universe.
You're now in the Poetry Universe with your host, Atawa I. Please subscribe for more awesome shows.
Welcome. Yes, get it right. Once more for another dub chat with I and I. And this year, Dub A Radio, the poetry universe. Yay, welcome one and all. For another session, Thank you for this support. This year, Dub A Universe. You've been awesome. I know we're fairly new. Just getting up and running. Working out all the kinks, the wrinkles, making them straight and nice for you all to enjoy the sounds and the entertainment. This is Dub A Radio. I'm your host, Atawa I. This week's Dub Chat, we're gonna talk a little bit more about poetry. We're gonna take a look at the different forms, different types of poetry and poems, So sit back, hold tight. If you know something, you can still listen in. If you don't know, we're here to enlighten you. As Dub A Radio is here to, help the independent and the independent creators among the I and I.
This is Dub A Radio, the poetry universe.
As you know, this is Dub A Radio. We specialize in the dub poetry form. And as you know, dub poetry is basically spoken words, poems, done over a reggae beat. Traditionally, And we can say that's one form of poetry, right? we have another form they call the blank verse. Yeah, blank verse is a poetry written with a precise meter, almost always yeah, it says a blank verse is written with a precise meter that does not rhyme, you know. So meter in poetry is the timing, you know, and a blank verse will is you can say it's a poetry form that most people know. Poem, when they talk about poem, they think of rhyming words, but not all the time poem rhyme or have to rhyme. But one of the main part of poetry is timing, which they call meter, right? So blank verse will hold its rhythm through the timing, the meter, and without not necessarily rhyming, right? Next one is a rhymed poetry. You know, we all know or familiar with the rhyming poetry. You know, rhyming poetries can come in various forms. You know, you have different types of rhymes, you know, rhyme schemes, I should say. Another type of poetry is the free verse, right? A free verse is a type of poetry where it have no specific rhyme scheme. You don't have like a consistent rhyme scheme or any form of meter or metering or consistent timing to it, you know. It's kind of like a bridge in a song where sometimes the bridge will go away from the key of the song, you know, will vary from the key of the song, you know, and float on a whole different pattern, or maybe even tap into a whole different genre, the sound, you know. So a free verse in poetry will take this form where it's not tied into the general timing or that general rhyme scheme that the poem is carried, you know. That's a free verse.
Dub A Radio.
Like,
Share and subscribe.
Yeah, man, this is Dub A Radio. I'm your host, Atawa I. We are looking into the different forms of poetry. You know, epic is the next one we're looking at. Epic poetry. Epic poetry is said to be always a lengthy poem. These long poems typically detail extraordinary feats and adventure of characters from a distant past, you know. So epic poems are those long poems that seems more like a story, right? That bring certain details, extraordinary details, you know, in-depth details to the characters and the what the character has done, right? Next one we have up is narrative poetry. Similar to an epic, a narrative poem tells a story, right?
This is Dub A Radio, the poetry universe.
Haiku is the next one. A haiku is a 3-line poetic form originating in Japan. The first line has 5 syllables, the second line has 7 syllables, and the third line again has 5 syllables. It's a haiku poetry. Continuing on the different forms of poetry, we have the pastoral poetry. Pastoral poem is one that concerns the natural world, rural life, and landscapes. These poems have preserved from ancient Greece to ancient Rome to present day, right? These are pastoral poetry. Poems that talk about the natural world, you know, and rural life, the landscapes, the birds chirping, the waterfalls roaring, and thing like that. Sonnet is the next form of poetry we're looking at. The sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-line poem, typically, right? But not exclusively, concerning the topic of love. Sonnets contain internal rhymes within their 14 lines. The exact rhyme scheme depends on the style of a sonnet, right? Sonnet are another popular type of poetry, like the Shakespeare poetry, right? Shakespeare stuff. To be or not to be. Elegy. Elegy. Elegies are poem that reflects upon death or loss. Traditionally, it contains themes of mourning, loss, and reflection. However, it can also explore themes of redemption and consolation. Right? Elegies. Example of elegies where, one reflect. We see a lot of elegies, most time where one will reflect on someone that passed in detail, true life happenings and elegies also can take the form of not only sorrow and sadness but also love, talking about love and person that you have met and relationship you've been in and stuff like that, right? Elegies, those are called elegies. Elegy. Ode. Is the next form of poetry we're looking at. Ode. Much like an elegy, an ode is a tribute to its subject, although subject needs to be dead or even yeah. So a ode form of poetry is similar to the elegy, but a ode is always a tribute to somebody that has passed, right? Next one is a limerick, another popular type. A limerick is a 5-line poem and that consists of a single stanza, an A rhyme scheme, and whose subject is a short pithy tale or description. Right? So a limerick poem will stay in that specific form. 5-line poem that consists of a single stanza and a A rhyme scheme. And we see a lot of poetry like this and gift cards, right? Limerick. A lyric poetry. Lyric poetry refers to the broad category of poetry that concern feelings and emotion. This distinguishes it from two other poetic categories, epic and dramatic. The next one we have is ballad. A ballad poetry form is a ballad is a form of narrative verse that can be either poetic or musical. It typically follows a pattern of rhymed quatrains. Right? So we all know styles like Bob Dylan, Get on the Bus, Jack, Make a Little Plan, Sam, right? That guy, right? You know, Ballad typically sound more like a song, not a dub poetry song. Next one up, next form of poetry. This is WA Radio. This is your host, Atawa I. If you're learning something new today about these poetry forms, let me get a like, leave a comment on whichever platform you may be listening in on, you know.
WA Radio.
Like,
Share and subscribe.
Soliloquy or soliloquy is a monologue in which a character speaks to him or herself, expressing inner thoughts that an audience might not otherwise know. Soliloquies are not definitely poems, although they often can be, most famously in the plays of William Shakespeare. Right? Next form of poetry we're looking at is the Villanelle. A 19-line poem consisting of 5 tercets, and a quatrain with a highly specified internal rhyme scheme. Villanelle has evolved to describe obsession and other intense subject matters, as exemplified by Dylan Thomas, author of Villanelles like Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. So a villanelle is a 19-line poem that consists of 5 tercets, right? Tercets are 3-line rhyme scheme and a quatrain, right? With a highly specified rhyme scheme, that's the villanelle. Yes, and those are the different forms of poems and poetry that are out there. Or the ones who interested in exploring the world of poems and poetry. And for just to enlighten those who didn't know, because a lot of time people will hear certain things and certain performances and say it's not poetry, because a lot of us are used to rhyming poetry. A lot of us used to that postcard poems, 5 lines, 4 lines, you know, verses and stuff like that. So it's good to know that there's different forms, there are different types out there, you know. different literary devices and rhyme schemes and tools out there to make the creative process easier, you know. And it's just this is just to enlighten. WA Radio is here to enlighten the ones out there who maybe on the outside looking in and say, hey, I can't write like that, I can't do that, you know, I can't. To know that, hey, it's not as it seems, you know. There are tools, there are blueprints, there are examples out there for the eye and I them to follow along and to complete the mission of poetry, reading, writing, performance, and the likes. I go by the name of Atawa. I thank you for joining me once more here on Dub A Radio in a dub chat where we had look at poetry forms and different forms of poetry. If you have learned something, let me get a like, share, thumbs up, something. Let me hear you. Let me feel you. You know. I see you out there listening. I'm looking. Keep on plugging into us. Thank you once more. And we're out of here.
Dub A Radio.
Like,
Share and subscribe.
Welcome to Dub A Radio.
Your access has been granted.
taking you to the higher state.
You are now entering the poetry universe.
Yeah.